my name is Laura Sappington. I am with TGA Premier Sports. We are in the youth sports enrichment space, with our prime focus being golf and tennis. We're the leader in golf and tennis, introducing young kids to the program. We recently joined the Youth Athletes United platform of brands. We're really excited to be a part of them. My background, right, and how I kind of landed in franchising. I got to be honest. I originally went to school for biology. I really wanted to be a doctor, and started on that pursuit, and quickly learned that I actually am not as good as organic chemistry as one would think. And so I, had to quickly pivot and ended up finishing out with a degree in biology and marketing. And with that, I was actually looking for internships my junior year into my senior year. And I had a couple opportunities, and one of them was with a golf company. And, I didn't play golf. I had a lot of friends who played golf and, friends' parents. But one of the reasons I was super driven towards that company was because they just recently brought on really high-level leadership to prepare them for strategic acquisition. So I wanted to work for their new marketing head, and get that experience, since that's actually how I ended up in golf originally. So I had a great experience with that. It was actually, it was a startup. They did real-time golf scoring on BlackBerry devices. This is before the iPhone came out. And, it was extremely unique about that is we had a lot of corporate clients and a lot of big golf events. So every Monday I was literally on a different golf course in North America. And that's when I really got to learn the passion behind the respect for the golf industry, but also, meet a lot of really talented people at these golf outings. And so I worked there for 2 years, and during it, I actually I ended up meeting Joshua Jacobs, the former CEO of TGA, at the PGA show down in Orlando. And, young Laura was going, oh my goodness, like, how can we work together? We have golfers, you're doing this, we have this individual scoring product, and essentially I was trying to pitch, for him to take something on for our company. And it ultimately didn't work out, but we stayed in touch. Unfortunately, being a part of a startup, I got to experience the negative side of it, where it ultimately, it didn't play out. And I went on to my next role, where it was actually with Apple. And so I figured, I'm with a really small company. Let's go experience a really big company. And so I joined Apple in the channel space. So with Apple, the main areas there's Apple Retail, the iconic, all the locations, and there's channel, which is actually very similar to franchising because it's everywhere Apple is sold, but it's not sold by Apple employees. So you're looking at wireless carriers, you're looking at different retailers. And it was really powerful to get that experience of, being able to lead through essentially not having any authority, right? And, learning all the different business areas and, just seeing how Apple thinks and how they approach things. And then also meeting all different types of people and learn about all these businesses. And ultimately I ended up spending 9 years with them. And towards the end, in my last 2 years, I realized, I wanted to go into something different, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I looked at all the opportunities I had within Apple, right? One of the great things is they can bring on like the best, the most talented people. So I went on with different experiences to work on special projects. I got to be a part of a team of 8, we call ourselves the Max Build 8, that actually was the group that launched the Apple Watch, the first retailer in North America, which was super fun to be about. And then also, moving on to product launches and how they approach that and with new retailers. And, I was able to gather all these different skill sets and experience and learn from these really talented people that really kind of set me up for the next role. So towards, the time of my tenure, Joshua Jacobs, he actually reached out to me. He was looking for a new marketing director. His previous marketing director had left. And he wasn't necessarily looking for me. He wanted to look for my contacts. So I was connecting with, mentioning people I knew and this or that. And as I'm talking, I said, wait, you guys are still around? It's been, like 17 years. Like, what's going on over there? Oh my goodness. Like, you have all these franchises. That's incredible. Wait, you have no debt on the company? Wait, you still own 100%, which is, as many know, like that it is very rare, especially as companies are growing. And so, over 2 months of discussions and negotiations, I said, hey, what I think you really need right now is for you guys to, essentially stop thinking like a startup and try to start bigger, or thinking bigger. And so kind of help them prepare for strategic acquisition. So that was November 2019, where I put in my 2 weeks at Apple. I took 2 weeks off, and then I was jumping right into the franchise space with TGA Premier Sports. And it's been a wild ride ever since.
Love it. Awesome. Great story. So we might have touched on a few of these things a little bit here, but I'd love to hear a little bit more. What would you say were some of the biggest challenges you faced early on? I guess we could say, in franchising, maybe even after you left Apple, what were some of the big learning? What are some of the big lessons you learned in franchising when you started?
So as I mentioned, my first day was, it was in December, right, 2019, and it was actually at their annual Franchise Summit conference. That was my first introduction to meeting everyone involved and all of our franchise owners. And, I'm super excited. I, made a joke about being my first day at school and, getting to meet these people. But to be completely honest, I walked into a scenario where there was a lot of disgruntled owners that I was not anticipating to be, walking into in the immediate. And so when the conference started, I had to work with the team I just met, and said, hey guys, this is what I'm picking up on. I think we need to pivot and kind of reposition this conference completely. Keep in mind, we're presenting at this point, and we really need to use this as an opportunity to hear and understand from our franchise owners of what they need, because right now they're not happy. And unhappy people, they're going to struggle with growing their business, and we need to be their support. And so it was a curveball, to say the least, right? Walking into that and positioning things and understanding. But it was really impactful and helped immensely to kind of, get a true understanding of what I was walking into. And gosh, so that was in December. And then first day in office was in January. Super excited, meeting the team and all that. And then we all kind of know what happened 2 months later. We got hit by COVID. And so that on its own was a challenge for not just for me, for everyone, but being new into a job, new into the franchising industry. How the heck am I going to help this company, which is the majority of its business is based on after-school enrichment programs based in schools, through this pandemic? We didn't know how long it was going to be. We, all these different extenuating circumstances, and get this company out and through this. And, I keep saying the company, but to me, it was like, how do I support these franchise owners? Because of franchising, right? You have all these individual owners, their own motivations, and you are there to empower them and help them. And it's a very different experience than being, with W-2 employees or everything. So being able to work with them and listen and hear and help quell, all their fears about what was going on. I knew that that would be a part of the role, but tied into the uncertainty of the pandemic, that was, I would actually look back, I was very privileged to go through it, because we had to quickly, learn about each other, rely on each other, trust each other, and get us all through. And I'm very proud that, we were able to navigate that together, and TGA was actually able to come out a lot healthier after the pandemic than going into it.
Yeah, awesome. I guess building off that kind of leads well to the next question I had here, which is, what would you say is a milestone or accomplishment that you're most proud of with TGA, and what are some of the goals that you're currently working towards?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm going to tag back to when I was speaking about COVID. As I mentioned, right, you have all these owners, you can hear the fear in their voices. We had multiple town halls where, trying to understand what they were experiencing emotionally, but also what they were experiencing within their local market. With COVID, it was very interesting to see how it varied all throughout the country, right? Some states didn't close at all, and they were keep going forward. And then, you had some states were completely locked down. And we spent that one-on-one time with each owner to truly to understand what they were experiencing within their market, so that we could make accommodations to be able to support them and get them through it. One of the great things about TGA is, with golf and tennis, they're individualistic sports. And the other part is the demand and the drive for sports during COVID, that didn't change. What changed is where we could have that experience for our customers. And so, it quickly pivoted, like, we don't have schools, but we have parking lots, we have outdoor space. And, these kids are inside and they want to get out there, they want to do sports. And, we have parents who are like, let's create that safe space and that outlet for kids so we can continue to move on. And gosh, it's one thing to say that to a franchise owner where they just lost all their revenue and they're trying to, they're refunding people all this and give them encouragement. But then that moment when they get that call for that account, or they're signed back on, it was crazy. I called it a New York minute because one day they had nothing. The next day I get a call, hey, we're back, and we have to quickly activate everything. And when I joined TGA, as I mentioned before, we kind of looked at it as, let's give another 5 more years. Let's, prepare the company for a strategic acquisition, depending, on where Josh wanted to go. And COVID actually accelerated that in a lot of different ways. And, another really proud moment, besides getting our franchises through, was we actually gave them the ability for, I would say just over 80% of our franchises did not have to pay us for 11 months. And I know that sounds insane. We were able to quickly tighten up our expenses, get a solid control to be able to do what I thought and what we thought was the most important thing, was to get our franchises through that. And, relieving that kind of financial stress was a huge part of that. And through these cost saving measures and this realignment, TGA ended up afterwards to be that much more healthy, and is truly ready for, its next step with it. So being able, to work through the pandemic, get our franchises through the pandemic, figure out all the ways to support them, and then to keep a company going and actually healthier, like that was, I have to say, that I'm most proud of with my experience with TGA thus far.
Definitely. That's great. I'd be interested to hear, we're talking a lot about, franchisees and everything. So I'd be interested to hear what do you think makes someone a good fit for the franchise industry? You could take this as franchisees or even franchisors or really anybody in the space. Are there any kind of traits that you think lend themselves to becoming successful in the franchise world?
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, franchise owners are the best because they tell you exactly how it is. They don't hold anything back. They call you if they're upset. They call you if they're excited, right? So one of the traits I think is incredibly important is for you to be authentic, but also, focus on people and build trust. At the end of the day, we're in the people business, right? And especially with franchising, we're just helping to give them the tools and support, and they're trusting in us, to achieve their business goals. So I think it's really important that, you build that trust and you learn about people, and you learn about their motivations early on, because it's going to help set you up for success down the line. Also, one of the fun things about franchising is you never know what's going to happen. So embrace the detours, right? Being uncomfortable is okay. Always be open to change. Change is actually what will drive innovation in the end. And with franchising, you want to constantly evolve and have that innovation. Corporate and headquarters, we give a lot of incredible ideas, but I firmly believe the best ideas come from the field. And so having that relationship, that trust that I spoke about earlier, and then being open to change in that innovation, it's an incredible merriment between the two.
Very well said. Yeah, that's a great quote. Amazing, Laura. Well, the last question I have here, I guess, building off that too, we were just talking about, what advice do you have for other young up-and-comers in the franchising space?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I have three areas of advice. If I could have 3 instead of 1. Is that all right?
Yeah.
And these are things that I've learned, throughout my career that, I was doing as behavior, but then, gosh, it made so much sense going into franchising, right? First off, never underestimate the power of a thank you note. I can't tell you, how many talented people that I've interviewed in the past at previous roles and, struggling between selecting the right candidate. But ultimately, what always stood out? The follow-up and that thank you note. People always remember kindness. So, take that extra time to keep that personal relationship and, send that follow-up and that thank you. And then also be courageous, right? Be bold. Send that random email or DM. And I say that because if you take smart, calculated lists of risks, you'll be incredibly surprised what could turn out. I can't tell you how many of these interactions I've had over the years that, I've built these really strong relationships. And I believe that people will be pleasantly surprised with how things play out. Some of my favorite people and interactions started from a random email of how can we work together? Ironically enough, when Youth Athletes United reached out to our CEO, Adam, he actually sent me a DM on LinkedIn. That's how our first interaction was. And I remember reading it and thinking, like, who the heck is this? What are they, mentioning if they buy youth sports companies and wants to talk? Like, what? A year later, we're coming up near September 1st in the closing. And, Adam is my new boss. He is, leading the charge. And it's an incredible story to be able to point back that it all started with a LinkedIn message. And then, finally, technology, the internet, social media, it's an incredible tool. It is what is driving us forward, right? But be very mindful of your digital footprint. Growing up, we were kind of always told, like, a tattoo is forever. But guess what? Nowadays, tattoos aren't forever. But your digital footprint is actually the new tattoo. So be very smart, be kind, and just think twice before putting something out there in the universe. And always put your best foot forward.
Yeah, great advice. Wow, so much great stuff. Well, thank you so much, Laura. This has been so great. I really appreciate you chatting with us and sharing your expertise and telling us your story.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course.